Stendhal, born Marie-Henri Bayle, was a prominent figure in 19th-century French literature. His works explore themes of ambition, passion, and the tension between ideals and reality, earning him recognition as a pioneer of literary realism. The Red and the Black is set in early 19th-century France during the Bourbon Restoration that followed Napoleon's fall. This period was marked by rigid class divisions, where the privileges of the aristocracy clashed with the ambitions of a rising middle class. Society was rife with contradictions. The yearning for progress existed alongside nostalgia for the past, and ambition often faced the hypocrisy of entrenched power structures. Against this backdrop, Stendhal tells the story of an ambitious young man struggling to carve out a place for himself in a world fraught with conflict and limitations. The title, The Red and the Black, symbolizes this struggle. Red represents the military, ambition, and passion, while black signifies the church, conservatism, and submission. Together, these colors embody the central conflict of the novel, as the protagonist, Julien Sorel, battles between idealism and pragmatism, ambition and restraint, passion and reason. Now let us delve into the story itself and discover the journey of Julien Sorel. Julien Sorel is born into a poor family in the provincial town of Verrières. His father, a stern and brutal carpenter, views Julien as weak and effeminate compared to his older brothers, who obediently follow in the family trade. Julien, however, is far from ordinary. From a young age, he is gifted with an extraordinary memory and an insatiable curiosity, traits that make him stand out in his small, stagnant community. He idolizes Napoleon Bonaparte, seeing him as the ultimate symbol of ambition and triumph over adversity. Julien dreams of achieving greatness, but his lowly social status is a constant source of humiliation and frustration. Julien's intellectual potential does not go unnoticed by the local priest, Father Chalon, who takes him under his wing. Recognizing Julien's sharp mind, Chalon teaches him Latin and theology, skills that could pave the way for a career in the church, one of the few avenues for upward mobility in this rigidly hierarchical society. Julien, however, harbors no genuine faith. He views religion as a tool for personal advancement. His relentless ambition drives him to master the Bible, not out of devotion, but to use its verses as a means of impressing and manipulating others. Fate intervenes when Monsieur de Rênal, the wealthy mayor of Verrières, decides to hire a tutor for his children. Influenced by Father Chalon's recommendation, de Rênal offers Julien the position. For Julien, this is a golden opportunity to leave his family's oppressive environment and gain access to the world of the elite. When Julien arrives at the de Rênal household, he is both excited and intimidated. The luxurious surroundings and polished manners of the family are stark contrasts to his humble upbringing. Julien is acutely aware of his outsider status and initially struggles to conceal his insecurities. However, his intelligence, charm, and diligence quickly earn the admiration of the de Rênal children, and more importantly, the attention of Madame de Rênal, the mayor's wife. Madame de Rênal, a beautiful and kind-hearted woman, is trapped in a dull and passionless marriage. Her life revolves around her children and the rigid expectations of provincial society. Julien's youthful energy and intensity awaken emotions in her that she had long suppressed. At first, she is drawn to him out of maternal affection, but this soon deepens into a romantic and physical attraction. For Julien, the situation is equally complex. Initially, he views Madame de Rênal's interest as an opportunity to assert his power and test his ability to influence those above him socially. He convinces himself that he is seducing her as part of a calculated strategy to strengthen his position. Yet as their affair unfolds, Julien finds himself genuinely captivated by her warmth and vulnerability. Their love becomes both a source of joy and a dangerous game of secrecy. The affair transforms Julien's life. For the first time, he experiences a sense of intimacy and acceptance that he has never known. However, this newfound happiness is overshadowed by the ever-present threat of exposure. Verrières is a small town, and its inhabitants are quick to gossip about any hint of scandal. Servants and acquaintances begin to notice the unusual closeness between Julien and Madame de Rênal, fueling suspicions and jealousy. The situation escalates when Madame de Rênal's rival, a spiteful woman intent on tarnishing her reputation, spreads rumors about the affair. These whispers eventually reach Monsieur de Rênal, who becomes increasingly suspicious of his wife's behavior. Despite Madame de Rênal's attempts to deny the allegations, the tension in the household becomes unbearable. Julien, sensing that his position is no longer secure, realizes he must leave before the scandal destroys him completely. His departure from the de Rênal household is both a retreat and a turning point. Although he has tasted the privileges of high society, he is painfully aware of how fragile his gains are. The experience leaves him more determined than ever to rise above his station, but it also marks the beginning of his disillusionment with the world of the elite. After leaving the scandal of Verrières behind, Julien Sorel finds himself at a crossroads. Despite his romantic failures and the humiliation of his social standing, his ambition burns brighter than ever. Julien sees the church as his next avenue to power, not because of faith, but because of its influence in post-Napoleonic France. He enters the seminary in Besançon, a strict institution where he must navigate a new set of challenges. At the seminary, Julien encounters hostility and suspicion from his peers, who resent his intellect and ambition. Most of the other students come from humble rural backgrounds and adhere to rigid orthodoxy, while Julien's sharp wit and calculating nature set him apart. His disingenuous religiosity, though it impresses his superiors, alienates him further. Julien's ability to memorize scripture and deliver passionate sermons earns the admiration of Abbé Pirard, the director of the seminary, who becomes an influential mentor to him. Abbé Pirard sees in Julien a reflection of his own struggles against mediocrity and corruption within the church. Recognizing Julien's potential, he protects him from the petty intrigues of the seminary and provides guidance. When political tensions force Abbé Pirard to resign his position, he recommends Julien for a prestigious role as secretary to the Marquis de la Mole, a powerful and wealthy nobleman in Paris. This recommendation marks a turning point in Julien's life, catapulting him from the provincial world to the dazzling heights of the French aristocracy. In Paris, Julien is thrust into a world of opulence and sophistication that both fascinates and intimidates him. The Marquis de la Mole, a shrewd and calculating man, quickly recognizes Julien's intelligence and resourcefulness. Julien's duties as secretary expose him to high society, political maneuvering, and the inner workings of the aristocracy. Although he remains an outsider due to his origins, his wit and diligence earn him the Marquis's trust. Julien's ability to navigate this new environment demonstrates his adaptability, but it also reinforces his awareness of the vast social divide that separates him from those he serves. Amidst this glittering society, Julien meets Mathilde de la Mole, the Marquis's daughter. Mathilde is everything Julien is not: aristocratic, wealthy, and assured of her place in the world. She is a proud, intelligent, and fiercely independent woman who views most of the men around her as beneath her intellectually and emotionally. However, Julien's sharp mind and intense ambition intrigue her. Unlike the sycophantic nobles she disdains, Julien's audacity and self-confidence present a refreshing challenge. The relationship between Julien and Mathilde begins as a game of power and manipulation. Mathilde, accustomed to being idolized, initially seeks to test Julien's resolve, while Julien views Mathilde as a stepping stone to his ultimate goals. Their interactions are marked by a complex interplay of attraction, rivalry, and mutual provocation. Mathilde is drawn to Julien's intelligence and enigmatic nature, while Julien is captivated by her beauty and the potential she represents for his social advancement. As their romance deepens, it becomes increasingly volatile. Mathilde's pride and Julien's insecurities create constant tension. Their passion alternates between fiery declarations of love and bitter arguments, reflecting their inner struggles. Mathilde sees Julien as both a lover and an adversary, someone who challenges her superiority while igniting her desire. Julien, meanwhile, grapples with conflicting emotions, genuine affection for Matilda, and a cold calculation of how their relationship can further his ambitions. Despite their differences, Matilda's infatuation with Julian leads her to defy social conventions. She boldly declares her love for him, risking her reputation and defying her father's expectations. Julian, stunned by her audacity, seizes the opportunity to solidify his position. Their engagement, though controversial, elevates Julian's status, granting him access to the aristocracy's inner circles. For a fleeting moment, Julian seems poised to achieve everything he has ever desired. With Matilda's love and the Marquis's reluctant approval, he gains wealth, power, and influence. The Marquis, though initially outraged by the engagement, begins to see Julian's potential as a political ally and future son-in-law. Julian is even granted a military commission, a personal triumph that fulfills his long-held dream of following in Napoleon's footsteps. Yet Julian's rise is built on a precarious foundation. His relationship with Matilda is fraught with instability, as her feelings for him oscillate between admiration and disdain. Julian's own insecurities and distrust of Matilda's aristocratic background further strain their bond. Beneath his polished exterior, Julian remains acutely aware of his outsider status and the fragility of his position. Complicating matters is a letter from Madame de Rênal, written under the coercion of her confessor. The letter accuses Julian of being a manipulative opportunist who seduced her for personal gain. This accusation reaches the Marquis de la Mole, shattering the fragile trust Julian has worked so hard to build. Julian's world begins to crumble, as the alliances he depended upon prove as fickle as the society he sought to conquer. Julian Sorel's rise to prominence, built on ambition, intelligence, and sheer determination, begins to unravel as his relationship with Mathilde de la Mole falters. Matilda, once passionately enamored with Julian's audacity and brilliance, begins to waver. Her aristocratic pride and Julian's deep-seated insecurities create an emotional chasm between them. Matilda's vacillating feelings, at times full of adoration, at others laced with disdain, leave Julian questioning the foundation of their bond. This instability exacerbates Julian's own doubts about whether love, particularly with someone from a higher social class, can truly serve his aspirations. He begins to see their relationship not as a partnership, but as another battlefield where he must assert his worth. Julian's growing cynicism casts a shadow over his ambitions. The once bright dream of social elevation now feels tainted by the compromises and betrayals it requires. Julian's fragile position is shattered by a letter from Madame de Rênal, the woman who had once loved him deeply. Pressured by her confessor and consumed by guilt over their past affair, Madame de Rênal writes to the Marquis de la Mole, accusing Julian of being a manipulative opportunist who exploited her emotions for personal gain. This letter, intended as an act of penance, becomes a weapon that destroys Julian's reputation and derails his engagement to Matilda. When Julian learns of the letter, his world collapses. Overwhelmed by anger, humiliation, and desperation, he impulsively decides to confront Madame de Rênal. Traveling to Verrières, he seeks her out in the church where she regularly prays. In a moment of blind rage, Julian attempts to assassinate her, shooting her with a pistol in front of the congregation. The act, though brutal, is not fatal. Madame de Rênal survives the attack, and Julien is immediately arrested. For the first time in his life, Julian's confidence deserts him. Stripped of his freedom and facing a bleak future, he is forced to confront the consequences of his actions. Julian's trial becomes a public spectacle, a dramatic confrontation between the ambitious young man and the rigid social order he has defied. Standing before the court, Julian surprises everyone with his composure and eloquence. Rather than plead for mercy, he seizes the opportunity to deliver a powerful indictment of the society that has shaped and betrayed him. Julian denounces the hypocrisy of the aristocracy, the corruption of the church, and the injustices of a system that stifles ambition and punishes those who dare to rise above their station. His words are a mixture of defiance and resignation, revealing a man who no longer seeks acceptance, but instead desires to expose the truth. Despite Matilda's frantic efforts to save him, including appealing to influential figures and offering bribes, the verdict is inevitable. Julien is sentenced to death by guillotine. The sentence serves as a grim reminder of the unyielding barriers of class and the harsh consequences of defying societal norms. In the weeks leading up to his execution, Julien undergoes a profound transformation. Stripped of his ambition and the illusions that once drove him, he finds a sense of clarity and acceptance. Madame de Rênal, still in love with him despite everything, visits him in prison. Their reunion is bittersweet, marked by forgiveness and an acknowledgement of the deep, complicated bond they share. Matilda, too, remains devoted to Julien. Her pride and passion drive her to stage a dramatic gesture of loyalty. After Julien's death, she arranges for his severed head to be placed in an ornate casket, which she plans to keep as a macabre symbol of their love. Julien's final moments are marked by a quiet dignity. He faces his execution without fear, viewing his death as both a personal defeat and a symbolic act of defiance against a world that has rejected him. In his last thoughts, he reflects on the choices he made, the ideals he pursued, and the reality of a society unwilling to accommodate his dreams. Julien Sorel's execution serves as a poignant conclusion to his turbulent life. He is a character who dared to dream beyond the confines of his birth, challenging the rigid structures of class and power in 19th century France. His journey, marked by ambition, passion, and ultimately tragedy, offers a searing critique of a society riddled with hypocrisy and injustice. The Red and the Black offers a sharp critique of 19th century French society, exposing the rigid class divisions and pervasive hypocrisy that suppress individual ambition and self-expression. Through the rise and fall of Julien Sorel, Stendhal satirizes the power structures that elevate wealth and lineage above merit and character. At its core, the novel explores the complexities of human nature, reflected in Julien's inner turmoil. Torn between his ambitions, love, and sense of self, he personifies the contradictions of an idealist trapped in a harsh, unforgiving world. His journey reveals the universal struggle between personal desires and societal expectations. This novel not only deepens our understanding of 19th century France, but also speaks to timeless human struggles. For anyone seeking a thought-provoking exploration of ambition, love, and the cost of challenging convention, The Red and the Black is an essential read. Stendhal's keen observations and psychological insight offer readers a mirror to their own aspirations and compromises.